it's good, and then it's kind of fun. It's like staying up after bedtime when you're still just a kid. Your love is 2 for 1. It's sweet, and then it's kind of.
Got unwanted pests in your home or business? Call Get Rid Pest Control at 414-368-0696. State licensed and certified with over 20 years experience, Get Rid Pest Control guarantees their work in the removal of common household pests, including mice, rats, ants, roaches, spiders, centipedes, and bedbugs. Humane trapping and removal of larger pests as well. Unmarked vehicles available upon request. 24-hour emergency service available. Call Get Rid Pest Control today for your free estimate. 414-368-0696. If you got it, we'll get it. Good morning. Welcome to the program. Today is Thursday, December 10th, 2020. You know, I've been thinking about stuff because clearly I have a lot of time to think about stuff. And I've been thinking about the future of Milwaukee's leadership. And we actually have a number of new leaders in the city right now. We just had an election in April, a local election. There was a mayoral election and aldermanic elections, and new people were brought to political office during a pandemic. And I think that says a lot about their leadership and their ability to win a race when how they campaign and how we vote has all changed. We didn't vote the same way. And because we had some changes in how we vote, the Republicans, who always want to call it voter fraud when they lose, which is interesting. But another thing is the Republicans are losing faith in the electoral process, as is evident by what Donald Trump is doing. But as they continue to lose faith in the process, I think it's going to have the inverse effect. Republicans are going to stop voting because they believe that in previous elections that they lost because people cheated, so they might as well not vote at all. It's a really ingenious thing the Republicans are brewing up. But the leadership in this city is on full display. How we handle the pandemic, how we distribute the vaccine that most of you all are not going to take, and then how we begin to rebuild. Currently, the Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission, or whatever is left of it, this powerful citizen board, this citizen body that hires, fires, creates, and terminates the contracts, and also has the ability to discipline firefighters and police officers, the kind of leadership that they exhibit, because law enforcement is front and center. And I don't want people to forget that a large theme of what took place in 2020 was focused on how law enforcement treats people. And then we saw it on full display when people took to the streets, rightfully so, and protested. They had grievances against their government, and they used a constitutionally protected right to address those grievances, and then the police got more violent. I was listening to a podcast with an ex-Navy SEAL, and the way he diminished the police, I want everybody to hear it. And if I can find it, because I flipped through a bunch of stuff, and if I find something interesting, I'll stop on it. A lot of things that's flooding our media sphere and even the podcast sphere is just a lot of garbage. Well, some people would say what I do is garbage too, but whatever. Teach their own. But he was like, look, the cops are not the military. They use our equipment and they think that they are a military organization. They're supposed to protect people, protect lives, and protect property, not be stormtroopers in the streets. Like, this isn't Mosul. This isn't Baghdad. The cops are in way over their heads. And we saw that on full display. But then when you look at the policy side of it, how do we select a new leader of law enforcement who's going to lead, for better or for worse, a platoon of 1,800, 1,900 Milwaukee police officers into the future of this city, where the voices of those that have often been marginalized have now come to the forefront? I believe that it was some of the organizing that took place around the marches and around the rallies coalesced people together, which ultimately created a much more favorable national election outcome because the protests were very widespread and very consistent throughout the summer. And at the same time, we had the presidential campaign that was taking place almost like in the background. And so, whenever you get large groups of people together with like minds, that is really what the purest expression of democracy is. There is an issue that brought people out in the streets together. The physical manifestation of democracy, because when you look at vote totals, you just see a bunch of numbers. You see electoral votes, you see percentages. But when you see protests and people actually in the street, that is what those votes and those numbers look like. And I've always wanted to make a much better correlation between people physically getting up and getting out, getting tear gassed out there in the streets during a pandemic, and letting that be this physical representation of people actually going to vote. Because I'll say this, of those people that voted in the 2020 presidential election, I'd imagine that most of the protesters and the people that were protesting for Black Lives Matter probably did not vote for Donald Trump because he used a political talking point and a series of political talking points and political instruments that was very much anti Black Lives Matter. So, whatever the future of the city of Milwaukee is, I think it needs to encompass some of that political energy, some of that democratic energy that did move the country, albeit maybe temporarily, in a different direction. I find so many things fascinating about this city because we're a small city population wise, but we have a big city mentality, it seems, but we don't really get big city stuff right. It's like we're going through these growing pains of a city's adolescence, even though Milwaukee is 170 something years old. And I think the growing pains that we are experiencing is what kind of city do we want to be? Do we want to be a, you know, 3 decade, we're starting our third decade in the 21st century, but I don't even know if Milwaukee has decided it wants to be a 21st century city. Are we going to be much more inclusive when it comes to our businesses? Are we going to include more people? Are we going to include more people from diverse communities in the building and reshaping of this town? Or are we going to continue to let the old guard shape what the future of this city looks like? And I'm always trying to figure out exactly where we're going. So if you look at one of the most important issues, and I believe in the city for a large number of people, it is law enforcement. And also it's important because it's really expensive. Half of our city budget goes to cop stuff, police training, police equipment, hiring cops, paying their benefits. So it's very important politically. And it's also very important, even personally, right? Because people have to rely on the police for a whole bunch of things. And so when you look at how we're going about selecting the new police chief, it's a complete mess. But I think that also exhibits the leadership that we have in this city. Now, there's also a great opportunity to get things right and to do things better. I'm hoping that what we saw transpire over this year gave people time to think and reflect about not just what's wrong, but also what's right, what we do right in this city. And so I do believe that there is some promise, but who and or what is going to take the lead? Is it going to be the same people that always have? Like, how much longer is Tom Barrett going to be mayor? You know, how often are these Chamber of Commerce really going to come out and say that they want and appreciate diversity? I think there's been a little bit more of that because the business sphere can actually lead, but I don't know if we have the people. You know, a lot of people leave this town as well. They find better opportunities. And for like I've gone back and forth on the issue because I've, thought about leaving Milwaukee, but there's something endearing about this town. Like it has a lot of potential. It's like I'm in a relationship with this city, like a bad dysfunctional relationship. But if I just love this city a little bit harder, it will see the error in its ways. Well, I've had opportunities elsewhere, but for some reason I've stayed here because there is a lot of potential here. But a lot of people move away. And I used to get offended by that. And then I was like, no, no, no. Especially if you're Black, you should move away. And so for a while, I encouraged it. Now I'm not sure. And I think it depends on the tone of leadership that we set, like the people set. We have a brand new county executive. We have a reasonably new leader of the Milwaukee Common Council. We have an African-American woman who is the most powerful legislator on the Milwaukee County Board. We have an African-American lieutenant governor. So I think the trappings are there to get different voices that 30 or 40 or 50 years ago never would have been paid attention to. Now they're in very, very important executive leadership positions. And I think some promise can flow from that. But the question is, will we get our act together and allow that promise to flow? Let us do a roll call, shall we? Good morning, MV Skokie Sabali. Michael Cunningham, good morning to you. Miss Dream Johnson, good morning. Or Von Harris, good morning to you. Gail Williams, good morning, all. You got me stumped on your music selection this morning. Sounded like some vintage Bootsy Collins. 2 cups of coffee, by the way. Nice t-shirt. Thank you. You are correct, Gail Williams. I didn't think I could stump you guys with the music. That is Bootsy Collins, Munchies for Your Love, and he is actually singing about either his bass guitar or a woman or possibly both. Can't pull the wool over your eyes. Sahara Ali, top of the morning to you as well. Betty Thompson, good morning. T. Bender says, good morning, boss man. Tutu Reeves says, good morning to all of y'all. Curtis Cook, good morning, everybody. G. Collins, good morning. Walter Jack Lanier, what's up, Walt? Pastor Lanier. I shouldn't swear this morning. There's a pastor amongst us. Everybody pray. Good topic. I'll have to catch it later. It's going to be an ongoing topic, Pastor Lanier, because I'm just trying to figure out where we go from here. I think we have a real opportunity to re-examine a bunch of things. I do want to talk about Black Lives Matter because they're having some trouble at the top. It was this large decentralized movement that was led by the people, and there were chapters of Black Lives Matter all over the country. And there was no like formal organization. It was more like an attitude, a mentality, a formula, a series of ideas that say, look, everybody's lives matter. We know that, but Black lives are under threat, and we have to have a particular focus on that. And also, drills down on the issues of white supremacy and racial injustice and a whole bunch of other things. But it's a very decentralized movement. Well, in America, for your decentralized movement to really make a difference, you have to start centralizing. So I have an article here, and I'm really going to get to it because a lot of times I say I have an article and I don't get to it. Dorian Higgins, good morning. Udell Harris, good morning to you. Douglas Dickerson, good morning, sir. Hey, Justin, good morning to you. Justin says, I feel like a reason we don't have a better idea of what our city is going to be is because the suburbs and exurbs use their influence to slow down progress. We could have had high-speed rail to get people places. We could have had a streetcar that gets folks all over town, including to Bronzeville and other parts that deserve to be celebrated and invested in. So I do agree. There's a bunch of things that I could talk about in that particular statement. So what I noticed about the Milwaukee streetcar, and those of you who are not familiar with it, so we had a large pot of money that had been sitting since the early 1990s for a large, durable transportation infrastructure capital project, meaning that we had a pot of federal money that could only be used for a transportation project. We don't have innovative forms of mass transit here, and that's also one of the things that keeps the city of Milwaukee segregated. It's the one thing that we're known for, and also the biggest thing that we should probably be ashamed of, but there are systemic and institutional reasons as to why Milwaukee is so segregated. So every now and again, I'll post pieces from the housing covenants that actually created and chartered the suburbs that surround the city of Milwaukee. And for a period of time, sometimes those amounts of time were 50, 60, 70, 80 years, where if you own property in these newly formed suburbs, Greendale, Greenfield, West Dallas, West Milwaukee, Bayside, Fox Point, Wauwatosa was the worst. It said if you own property here, you could not sell, rent, or convey your property to anyone of the Negro race. And these were actual documents that were supported by the courts. Now, of course, they all became illegal when we got the development of housing and urban development, which was a congressional bill signed into law that outlawed federal housing discrimination. So those housing covenants that had been enforced at that time for 20 plus years were no longer valid. But the point still remained. If you purchased houses and property in the suburbs, African Americans were not, or any person of color, were not allowed to buy that property, which kept us out of equity. Buy a house at one price, you pay it off, you sell that house for more than what you paid for it. You now have your entrance and permanent place in the middle class. You can start a business, you can pay off your debt, you can send your kids to college. You just had more flexibility. African Americans were kept completely out of that. Now, the other thing that we saw with this durable transportation project that was specifically for the city of Milwaukee, and we considered a bunch of things. Light rail was a consideration, high speed rail to really integrate the region, because in the last 40 years, where the jobs have been created have been away from the city. They've been out of the city, sometimes out of the reaches of the public transportation that we have, which are buses. It's a very old school way of transporting people, but we still have it here in this city. And so if you create the jobs out of the reach of two things, number one, unions, because unions are powerful in the city. And if you create the jobs out of the reach of transportation, right? So you have the buses limited in their routes. And then you say, oh, because of budget cuts, we can't extend the bus route. That's all contrived anyway to make sure that people who live in the city who need the jobs, who used to have factory jobs, but now there's no more factory jobs because Mexico and NAFTA. And so we limit the bus routes, maintaining the segregation. So now, if you were fortunate enough to get a property in the suburbs and have equity, the next generation then had the creation of more jobs and corporate office parks in those same suburbs, again, without the influence of people of color from the city going out to those suburbs because we couldn't get there. But then you have to do another thing. You have to penalize people and take their driver's licenses away from them. When you criminalize children and they get tickets for disorderly conduct, which is ridiculous, because if a 12-year-old kid gets in a fight in the lunchroom, they should not get a criminal ticket. But if they can't pay the ticket, because they probably can't, you suspend their driver's license. Meaning that when they turn 16, if they don't pay the fines, they can't get a driver's license, they probably won't get a car, they won't be able to drive out to the suburbs where the jobs are being created. Do you see how all of this stuff works? And what it leads to make a long story short, is a destitute situation in the central city where one of those results is homicide. There is such a hopelessness, not amongst all people, but amongst enough. It's something like 6% of the people commit 60% of the crimes. The hate that had been so heavily directed at Black people specifically, I mean others, but Black people just institutionally, the hate that was so heavily directed at Black people eventually turned inward. And then sometimes Black people begin to hate one another. It's this whole psychological thing that I don't want to get into. But we had our conversations about the streetcar, which was a very small step in using the money that we had for a transportation project to begin to integrate the region. And as time went on, Republicans spent that money down. They found other creative ways to use it. It was almost like we had a Social Security fund, but specifically for transportation that would integrate the region. But Republicans found ways to raid that fund. And what Scott Walker did is he just maintained the buses with our transportation money. It was supposed to build something new, big, innovative, and integrating. And Scott Walker just used it to do oil changes and replace the tires and the seats on Milwaukee County buses, which was a terrible waste of the money. But he knew what he was doing. And so we had enough money left to do a streetcar, only 2.5 miles. And it was a very specific route downtown. And people got very mad at that because it didn't connect people in the central city, north side, south side, to where the jobs were being created or to this new entertainment mecca that was being brewed up downtown. The streetcar didn't really do that. It just connected people that already had a bunch of transportation options, including Uber and Lyft, including public transportation and their own vehicles. It gave those people who live in wealthier parts of the city more transportation options. But there was a political reason behind that. There's some thought that if we do certain things in this city, we will increase property values. So if you add an additional transportation option, because here's the thing, a lot of other cities have that, but it's more metro area wide. In cities where you have commuter rail or light rail, it's not just connecting one neighborhood, it connects multiple neighborhoods. It'll connect you like from the airport to your downtown, to your business districts. Like that is what commuter rail, light rail is supposed to do. But we didn't have the money for it because Scott Walker, with the help of the Republicans, they spent it. So we couldn't have an integrating transportation project. And so Mayor Tom Barrett fought tooth and nail, and it was such a political battle, and it was so fierce, over 2.5 miles of light rail. And I participated in the battle on both sides of it because I wanted to extract the truth out of both sides' arguments. Some people thought it was a good idea and they were totally in support of it. It even got put to an electoral test because I think it must have been the election of 2016 where implementing the streetcar and spending however much money we had to spend on, redoing our infrastructure to lay the tracks all around the city. People are like, look, if you don't like the streetcar, here are several candidates you can vote for mayor that will literally stop it. Or you have Tom Barrett, who is going to be very much in support of it. And it was such an incredible battle, unnecessarily, but there's a reason behind it. And the biggest critics of the streetcar, still to this day, I mean, there were a lot of critics, but the biggest, the most vocal were people who lived in the suburbs. They still have an undue amount of influence on what happens in the city. Still to this day, the suburbs that were created because of pure racism, that in some instances remain white and still vote Republican and conservative, have a tremendous influence on the city of Milwaukee's politics. Sherwin, how can that possibly be? I'm gonna tell you. And it's this insidious formula that racism is. And this is what we all have to work together first to recognize, then to eliminate. Remember when I told you that they created these housing covenants so that white families in the suburbs could build equity and build wealth and have money to pay off debt and money to invest and money to start up business interests, right? A whole bunch of things they could do with this money. It's the whole point of the housing covenants, so that one particular group of people would have a head start, because many, many years ago, and I can go back forever on this because it is the root of why Milwaukee is so racist and so segregated. Banks did not want to lend to people, especially after the stock market crash in 1929. Banks had no interest in giving you a mortgage, black, white, Latino, Asian. They didn't like giving money to people because it wasn't worth it. Federal government comes in and says, look, we need to start building wealth for a particular group of people in this country. So we, the federal government, will back the mortgages you give to individual people. And the banks were like, we still don't want to do it. And the banks eventually settled on a compromise. The federal government, this is under FDR now, so while you're all celebrating Franklin Delano Roosevelt, know that he was in cahoots with the banks to make sure that, number one, the federal government would back the mortgages, because banks never thought that people would ever pay their mortgages back. So banks are like, wait, we're going to give somebody $15,000 for a house and we have to trust they're going to pay us back? Like we're gonna own the property and then they're gonna pay us back monthly. FDR says, no. If they default, then we, the federal government, will back you, but you only are going to be selling these houses and giving these financial packages called mortgages to white people. And the banks were like, we can roll with that. White people would be a better credit risk, we think, at this juncture. So then you have housing covenants to say, okay, we have all this vacant land, used to be farmland. Now we're going to build subdivisions, we're going to build houses, which is going to be economic development, which is going to be a tax base. We're going to use that tax base to invest even further in this suburban infrastructure. And we're not going to allow any kind of people of color, no black people, to even rent, let alone own these properties. And what you have is the beginning of intergenerational wealth. If your family has owned a property for many, many years and has built up equity in that property, and then the kids get the house, or you sell the house and then you create this system of wealth, that money still exists. Some of the money that was created, some of the wealth that was created when white people were the only ones that could buy high valued property in these brand new suburbs, the money of the suburbs still influences the city of today. That is why the people in the suburbs who have a history of owning property and having equity 2, if not 3 generations before African Americans, still spend some of that money, some of that equity that their parents or their grandparents had that was handed down to them through inheritance. They still spend their money in the city. Some of them still work in the city. So if the city is going to invest its resources, bestow it upon it by the federal government for a transportation project that will bring people of color and minorities out to the suburbs. Remember, the suburbs still have a lot of political influence in the city because a lot of campaign contributions can also be traced back to some of that wealth that was garnered during the housing covenants. And they had an absolute fit because the last thing they want is to have their kids and their grandkids have to compete for jobs in the suburbs because they worked so hard and for so long to make sure that no one could get out to the suburbs. That's why we're so heavily policed, to stop us from going out there. Do you know how many stories there are of an African-American man or woman who's applying for work in the suburbs because they need to pay the tickets to get their driver's license reinstated and they continue to get pulled over and never can get a legitimate driver's license? It keeps them in the criminal justice system forever. That's where we're at. And because the suburbs want to come to the city to recreate. So we have a baseball stadium here, and 20 years ago, that was also a really big political deal. Miller Park is where the Brewers play or used to play because we don't really do much baseballing anymore because the Rona. And so we had County Stadium, which is it's situated between like West Milwaukee and the city of Milwaukee. It's not, I don't know what it's kind of Milwaukee, but it borders West Milwaukee. The boundaries of the suburbs and the city get kind of weird sometimes. And so we had County Stadium, and it was like old, and you needed a new baseball stadium, and the Brewers need to be much more competitive, or I think the Brewers are going to leave Milwaukee, and white folks love their baseball. I made a post some time ago, and I found out more African Americans like baseball than I ever thought. Because to me, it just seems like a white sport. So they were going to invest a whole bunch of money, including raising our sales taxes, to build Miller Park. But here's another symbol of the segregation that exists in Milwaukee. If you go to any normal city, and when I say normal, I mean like not like us, your big major attractions are always downtown. So your big major attractions are going to be your basketball arena if you have a professional sports team. And keep this in mind as well. If you have a professional sports team, you have major economic development in your city. Not every city has a professional sports team. There's cities that are bigger than Milwaukee that don't have professional sports, and we've got professional basketball, baseball, soccer, hockey, and other less important sports too, right? So we have a lot of professional sports teams in a very, very, very small market. I would argue we don't even have the market that can support the professional sports teams that we have, especially when only one particular group of people can even afford to go to a Bucks game. You ever been to a Bucks game? Costs much money, very expensive. Very costly, very expensive things at the Bucks game, including the tickets and the food, and a beer costs a kidney. It's very expensive. We have all these sports teams here, too many. So when they're deciding on building Miller Park, you're supposed to put your large attractions, your baseball stadium, your basketball arena, your casino. We have one of those too. But all of those things are supposed to be downtown. Your convention center, your hotels, all of that stuff is supposed to be downtown. So you can corral all of the money, the people that come into town from your airport, which should be connected through light rail or high-speed rail to your downtown, because you want those wallets and those travelers and those tourists to literally get off the plane and bring their butts right to downtown so they can spend money. They can rent a car. They're staying at a hotel. They want to get drunk. They want to go to a restaurant. They want to gamble. They want to take in a Bucks game. They want to take in a Brewers game. They should all be able to do that in one area. But what we found, the season ticket holders for the Milwaukee Brewers, which is a Milwaukee baseball team, used to be it was the Braves, right? The Milwaukee Braves before they went to Atlanta. I don't know where the Brewers came from. They fell out of the sky, apparently. But we found out the majority of the season ticket holders, people that spend big money on the Milwaukee Brewers, don't live in Milwaukee. They lived in Waukesha County. And so when the thought was, well, if we're going to build a new baseball stadium, let's put it downtown so we can really build up downtown and have as many attractions downtown to bring as many people and as many tourists. You can go to Summerfest. Remember when we used to have Summerfest? That's downtown. But you want all of those other tourist attractions downtown as well. So it's like, well, look, County Stadium was kind of out in the suburbs a little bit. It's kind of bordering on Milwaukee and West Milwaukee. If we're going to spend, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars to build a new baseball stadium, let's put it downtown. Season ticket holders from Waukesha, and you guys know about Waukesha, one of the most Republican voting counties in the country, said, don't you dare. And people are like, wait a minute, why not? Miller Park is west of the city of Milwaukee. The season ticket holders, who have a tremendous amount of influence because they spend a bunch of money every year on tickets, right? They're a source of revenue for the team. They said, we don't want to have to drive further into the city of Milwaukee to go to a baseball game. So they rebuilt Miller Park for the 21st century on the outskirts of the city and not putting it downtown where it's supposed to be like any other normal city. That is the influence on the suburbs of even the landscape of the city of Milwaukee. Potawatomi should be downtown as well, but I don't necessarily get into tribal disputes. I know that the Potawatomi own whatever land the Potawatomis own, and some of it was sold, some of it was taken, is sovereign territory. Like the Milwaukee police can't patrol the Potawatomi Casino, which has expanded like crazy over the last 20 years. In fact, Miller Valley is the baseball stadium and the casino, but they're supposed to be downtown. But if you notice, they're off the beaten path a little bit. And there's no like direct transportation to get to any of them. I think you might be able to take a bus, but that doesn't even make any sense. But Potawatomi should have been downtown as well. But I think that the land that it's situated on was still owned by the tribe, and I could understand why they would not want to sell or convey that land for any other purpose. Because if you put a casino anywhere, you probably can't make more money per square foot of land than with a casino. But a close second would be fast food. A lot of folks may not know this. McDonald's is not, I mean, it's secondary that they sell McRibs, which y'all are going nuts for. You guys know that that's not ribs, right? The McRib is not, it's a mix something else, but whatever. McDonald's figured out that the best way to maximize your profit per square foot of land that you own is to sell hamburgers. It's a real estate play. That's why McDonald's buys so much property, because they know that if they erect a McDonald's, and yeah, I mean, they make burgers and fries and, you know, it's consistent and people, you know, have this sentimental feeling toward McDonald's, and goes back to our childhood. And you ask a 2-year-old kid, you show them the golden arches at McDonald's. It's a very recognizable thing. But McDonald's is like, no, this is about real estate, because wherever we put up a McDonald's, we can count on a certain amount of profit per square foot of land that we own for McDonald's. So what the future of Milwaukee leadership, to bring everything back full circle, I know I went around the block to get next door, because I just can't have people putting themselves in leadership positions and not knowing the history of this city and why it is the way it is. Because everybody can complain about it being segregated, but nobody knows why. And if people don't know why, we're just going to maintain it and just like, oh, that's just how it is. No, that's not how it's supposed to be. There are people who are afraid of the city, and quite honestly, now they're getting jealous of it, that still want to have a tremendous amount of influence of things that happen here. And there is the possibility that those who have never had their voices heard, who have never had the same amount of influence on the shape and geography and economic development of this city, that they should have an opportunity to take the microphone as well. Melissa says, good morning. Did I miss the big announcement? You know what? So when I make the big announcement, I almost told you guys this morning, actually. I almost did. Everybody's going to know. So if I make it, I guess I probably should, when I do make the announcement, I probably should make it here, but not yet. We're getting really, really close. And I think I might have set expectations too high, but what are you going to do? No, I'm not pregnant. But no, I did not make the big announcement yet. It's coming soon. Denise Jones, good morning. Sahara Ali, vote for Sherwin. No, don't do that. If I ever ran for office, well, I'm not going to run for office because I thought about it. The only time I seriously considered running for office, to where I was starting to put together the early part of the campaign, was in 2002. And I lived in the 10th Assembly District, and Polly Williams was the representative. And I said, oh, well, I might as well run for office where I live. But I quickly realized that I never would have beat Polly. But now I don't want to run for office, because then you find out people that you think like you actually don't. And it's too tough of a pill to swallow. And I just, you get in office and you try and do the right thing. And, you have to do a lot of battles for really trivial stuff. And it's really petty. Politics has gotten more petty now. than in any other time in the years that I've worked in the realm, in the field of politics. And it'd be too much. And like you have to make all these promises that you know you can't keep, but you got to give people a real reason to vote for you. Like you got to tell people that you're going to give them stuff. You got to bribe voters. You got to bribe them with, money that you're going to give them. You got to bribe them by saying you're going to cut their taxes. You got to bribe them by saying I'm going to create a whole bunch of jobs. Politicians don't create jobs; they just get out of the way of job creation, which really is a conservative philosophy. But you got to tell people all this stuff. And so while you're telling people all this stuff to bribe them into voting for you, your political opponents that will ultimately be your colleagues if you win just heard all of the things you plan to do, and they're going to make sure you don't do any of it. So that's the difficult part about it. You are promoting and parading all of these wonderful things you're going to do for the people that vote for you, and they believe it, and they vote for you, and your colleagues are like, you ain't doing none of that because you're going to make us look bad. Like, we're not going to help you do that stuff for them because then you're going to make us have to do hard work. So I would never do it. I think that there are certain people that are cut out for that are like natural, and they're born to be an elected official, a legislator, or an executive. Like, you have to be born for that. Like, they're not really made. The people that are made for politics, you can tell. The people that have it in their blood, you can tell with them too, because it's really sincere. Like, I think Barack Obama has it in his blood. Barack Obama, being the person that he is, would have been forced into running for office. And I think he ran for Congress and lost. But people are like, no, we're not done with you yet. You're going to run for more stuff. He's like, word? The Senate? That's a big one. And he ran for the U.S. Senate and he won. He was a senator for what? Got elected in 04. So 05, he took office. He announced his presidential campaign in like February of 07. So he was a senator for literally 2 years. And then a bunch of people was like, no, dude, you got to run for president. It's in you, Barack. And then now you got the Affordable Care Act. Lemon Harris almost missed my daily Sherwin. Thank you, sir. I'm glad that you're here. Sarah Laguerre, good morning. Justin Ferminich, replying to Justin Ferminich. You nailed it, Sherwin, 100% what I was getting at. Thank you, sir. I just want more people to, because you can't talk about this city with any level of intelligence if you don't know how we got to where we are. And I think it just helps us all talk about leadership and talk about the future if we all have the same facts. And a big problem here is that the suburbs still have a tremendous amount of financial, economic, and political influence in the city. But where we see the difference is because if you look at, we have a race, an election coming up, statewide election coming up in April, and the suburbs, which are smaller in population than the city. So there's 19 different cities that make up Milwaukee County, and David Crowley, good friend of mine, is county executive of all of it. So he's the executive director of the corporation of Milwaukee County, which is chartered by the state. County governments only exist for one reason, not because you like them, because it's another way to represent the people, because the state of Wisconsin is a large corporation as well. It has a constitution. The Constitution is its bylaws. It has a board of directors, the state of Wisconsin corporation does. Those are called your legislators, right? So that's the board of directors, and you have shareholders in the state of Wisconsin, individual little taxpayers called voters. We are a corporate structure. You ever wonder why corporations rule America? Because the United States of America is set up on a corporate charter. The Declaration of Independence is the creating document. The U.S. Constitution are our corporate bylaws. The board of directors are Congress and the Senate. The shareholders are the body politic. That's why corporate structures even exist. They're fashioned after the country. So the state of Wisconsin is a corporation in and of itself, where Tony Evers is the executive director. Counties exist to help the state distribute resources. different programs that are necessary to function as a society. The state collects the money. The state gets the income taxes. The state gets the property taxes or whomever or whatever they want to tax. And then they create programs. The state of Wisconsin, so the nerve center of Wisconsin's government is in Madison, in the capital. They can't adequately distribute resources to 72 counties and 5.8 million people. They need help. So they created other geographic units called counties. And the counties distribute the resources. We got the Department of Aging, we got the district attorney's office, we got the zoo, we've got the airport. Those are all functions of Milwaukee County funded by the state. And there's some federal money that gets thrown into that mix as well, but that's the whole thing. The suburbs in Milwaukee County still have an undue amount of influence, and they typically vote in a higher percentage, even though their population is smaller. If the city of Milwaukee votes in some elections at 45%, with our almost 600,000 people, but the suburbs that are 330, 340,000 people, give or take, vote in a 90% number, they oftentimes can get their candidate that is running countywide. And so it was interesting because the Milwaukee County executive race that took place in April between a super liberal in Chris Larson and an African-American, David Crowley, who was in a lawsuit suing the Milwaukee Police Department because he is racially profiled. A lot of people don't know that. And David was, I don't want to say that he didn't tell people that. Even though he's an African-American man, just like any other that lived and grew up, still does, in the city of Milwaukee, he had interactions with the police as well. He was stopped and frisked, and it was found that the Milwaukee Police Department did so unconstitutionally. He, the county executive, is a plaintiff in a lawsuit against the city of Milwaukee, but I think he believes that if he would have come out public with that, white suburban voters that vote in higher percentages than people in the city of Milwaukee would have turned against him. But we put those suburban voters to the test. We said, you're going to vote for a communist socialist like Chris Larson, or are you going to vote for the black guy? They're like, damn. And David Crowley wins by, 1,000 votes out of 190,000, 180 or 190,000 votes were cast for county executive, and David Crowley wins by like 1,000 votes. Because the suburbs, who usually pick our county executives. If the suburbs don't like you, you're not going to win countywide. It's just how it is. But we made them choose, like, what you want? Commie or black? Like, oh, agonizing. So there you go. I probably was making a point somewhere, but I just get wrapped up in all this history. Diana Beckham, good morning. Denise Jones, the Potawatomi Casino is tribal land. Fair enough. I wish that they would have. Wouldn't that be awesome, though, if all of our stuff was downtown? Because what you're supposed to do, and I made this argument about light rail because the Republicans lied to a lot of people and they said, no, we don't want it because it's going to be really expensive to maintain. No, your tax dollars, because remember, we as Republicans promised that we cut your taxes. So vote for us, but if you support the high-speed rail or the light rail, really what they wanted to do is make sure that we didn't integrate the region, because white people, even progressive white people, liberals or whatever some of them are, don't want to compete with black people because y'all will lose sometimes, like the competition that exists is a function of capitalism, but if you can limit competition, you give yourself an unfair advantage. And we do that with people and with jobs, right? So if you criminalize a neighborhood and you over-police it and you give people criminal records, they're ultimately less competitive in the job market. I recently submitted my name for something, which I can't tell you what it is. I mean, you know what it is. I just can't tell you what it is yet. Well, maybe you don't know what it is, but that's a part of the announcement. So there was a process that I was really unfamiliar with because I haven't worked for a something for a long time. Like, I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years. And so working for someone, it's different. The background check was insane. They wanted my credit score. They sent me a form, not kidding you. They're like, hey, but here's a bunch of stuff. Put your social security number. We need a social security number. We need a whole bunch of, like, a lot of stuff. I was like, oh, this is intrusive. And then they sent me another form. You must consent. You must consent. We're asking for your consent. And If I didn't consent, then I would not have been moved along in the process. They're like, we're gonna do a credit check. And then they say, oh, well, if you want to see it as well, we can request it once we do. So it was after the background check. They wanted a credit check. And I was bothered by that, because someone's financial hardships during a pandemic, no less, and their credit score falls to whatever their below whatever their acceptable number is. It's not fair. And we know that there are groups of people that don't have access to credit like others do. Or if you can't pay your bills on time, like, I don't know, 68% of Americans right now, that would disqualify you from a job. There's 11 or 12 states plus DC and Chicago that have made that illegal to require a credit. So a background check is fine, but a credit check is actually illegal in certain states in this country because it is used to discriminate almost exclusively, and it makes me sick. But what could I do? Thankfully, I passed it. But a lot of other people that are qualified to do particular types of work in fields where we have no diversity, and these employers sometimes have the audacity, I almost swore there, almost cussed, but Pastor Lanier is going to see this later, so I didn't cuss, Pastor, praise Jesus. Have the nerve to say that they want diversity, but are using something that is completely designed to exclude Black and brown people that don't have the same access to credit. I got sick. I'm going to tell you all about it one day. I just can't tell you yet. Deion James, good morning, Sherwin. Definitely be enjoying your shows. Well, Sherwin definitely enjoys you enjoying my shows. Hi, Sherwin. Are you coming back to radio? Isn't this better, though? Because I'm free here. I can say stuff. I even have... Hey, hold on. I got a bunch of buttons. Got unwanted pests in your home or business? Call Get Rid Pest Control at 414-368-0696. State licensed and certified with over 20 years experience, Get Rid Pest Control guarantees their work in the removal of common household pests, including mice, rats, ants, roaches, spiders, centipedes, and bedbugs. Humane trapping and removal of larger pests as well. Unmarked vehicles available upon request. 24-hour emergency service available. Call Get Rid Pest Control today for your free estimate. 414-368-0696. If you got it, we'll get it. I have commercials. So this is just as good. And listen, I also want you guys to know, and thank you so much. And every now and again, I need to do this more often. I thank the people that have actually invested in this. So this platform, which, and the money adds up for like stuff you have to buy. You got to buy microphones and a mixing board. I got a green screen back here. Actually, let me make sure that my background is, oh, there it is. It's still there. Like, you guys bought this. Like, I'm so grateful for that. This is crowdfunded. And I'm so just like humbled by that. If you go to patreon.com/theforum2, by all means, we appreciate it. Like, and it's not, there's no like money really to be made, but to be able to put on this broadcast and have it look reasonably professional and have the sound quality somewhat kind of okay, it could be a little bit better, but my office is not really set up to be a studio. Like, I appreciate this. You guys actually brought me back from the dead, because I thought that when I left broadcast radio, I was just finished. I was going to just, I don't know, help people get elected and post a bunch of stuff on Facebook, but you guys brought me back, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And the people that have subscribed to our YouTube channel, because that helps as well. But I like doing this. I'm going to tell you what, I'll make you guys a promise, and I don't like to make promises because the world is so unpredictable. Regardless of whatever my next endeavor is, regardless of what it is, I'm going to keep doing this. And those at the other endeavor, they know it. I'm going to keep doing this. Because this is like, you guys are the family here. Like, this is where we get stuff done and we have the conversations, and you all are respected. There have been a number of people that have wanted to talk to you all. Not me necessarily. They want to get input from you And for that, I'm just glad to be able to be a part of this with you guys every day. So I'm still going to do this. And anybody that has inquired for my services and my time in some other endeavor, first thing I say is like, look, I got this thing, that I do. And they go, oh, you do? Well, you're probably going to have to give that up. I probably am not going to have to give that up. So I'm here. Lemon Harris, no fries are better than McDonald's. I think there's crack in them. Absolutely. I'm a French fry. I like French fries. McDonald's gets it right even when they get it wrong. Even if you get stale McDonald's fries, you're just like a little bit disappointed. It's like, these are kind of stale, but you'll still eat them. Unless you're one of those people that, because for me, when I ate fast food, I don't eat it anymore. The fries were for the ride home, baby. If you have French fries left when you get home, you did it wrong. And then you know how you have the space-time continuum, which is the space between, like, it's the universes down there. Like, there's missing children down there. The space between your armrest and your seat. Why automakers haven't fixed that and sealed that up? You ever drop something in the abyss between your armrest and your seat, and let alone a cell phone, because when you drop it, damn, I got to pull over. You got to get out the car, get on your hands and knees. Your butt crack is hanging out because you dropped something. French fries fall into the abyss. Potawatomi Casino is property tax exempt. Yeah, but they also made a deal with Governor Jim Doyle that the tribes collectively would contribute $1 billion a year to state government because they've expanded their gaming. Because Potawatomi used to be just bingo. That's all you could do at Potawatomi was bingo. But then the casinos, because there's several casino tribes in the state of Wisconsin, and for a while they were our only $1 billion industry. I think it was the paper industry in the Fox Valley. Kimberly Clark, if you're familiar with it, so if you go to like a restaurant or a bar back when we used to restaurant and bar, your paper towel dispensers, they'll say Kimberly Clark on them. Major mega corporation located in, I think, Appleton, or in the Appleton area. Kimberly, I think. Well, Kimberly Clark, but Kimberly is like a suburb of Appleton. They produce the world's supply of paper products, right? The great grandson of the founder of Kimberly Clark, and also this man, I can't think of his first name, but his last name is Sensenbrenner, invented the Kotex, the sanitary napkin. So Kimberly Clark, but James Sensenbrenner, the former Congressman Sensenbrenner, is an heir to the Kimberly Clark throne. So, said all that to say this. There was a period of time in the early 2000s where the only billion-dollar industries we had in the state were paper products, mostly Kimberly Clark, and casino gaming. And Governor Doyle needed some form of revenue other than raising taxes to fortify the state budget. And he made a deal with the tribes and said, you guys can offer crazy gambling now. So not just bingo. There was no roulette. There was no craps. There was no blackjack at Potawatomi 20 years ago. You had to go to Vegas for that. And Vegas liked that. They didn't like the fact that tribes had casino gaming in their states. Vegas wanted you to come to Vegas and gamble. And so Jim Doyle was like, look, and the tribes here were losing out to Las Vegas because Vegas is still really inexpensive. It was the last vacation that I went on before the world shut down. And it wasn't even that expensive. It's probably even cheaper now. So Jim Doyle made a gaming pact. I'm sure some of you will research it. Because of the 20 or 30 years, and the Republicans had a fit. They're like, oh my God, why would you solidify for 20 or 30 years? We should revisit the pact every year because casino gaming, once it's able to expand, because now there's roulette, there's all sorts of poker, there's blackjack, there's all the casino games you can find in Vegas are now offered at Potawatomi and at tribes throughout the state. That didn't used to exist. And the tribes are like, oh, you want us to chip in $1 billion to let us offer Vegas-style gaming? They're like, say less. And so, yes, they may not pay, but native land they're exempt from property taxes because it was like you can't steal native land. Like you can't steal, as an example, the whole state of Wisconsin from natives, put them on reservations, and then we're going to tax you on your own land. So that's why that. Probably while they're tax exempt. That would make sense to me anyway. Somebody is saying LOL, and somebody says ha 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 ha. Justin says, Sherwin, when you gonna have an OnlyFans? I swear to God, I was gonna put a post up about OnlyFans. You know that, like, I shouldn't say this. Boy, I could go on forever about OnlyFans. So I'm gonna tell you right now that there are mothers and daughters that live in the same house that are both on OnlyFans. So no, let me answer. I didn't answer the question. I'm I'm not gonna be on. So maybe my Patreon is like my OnlyFans, but I'm not gonna show you my junk on there. I mean, depends what y'all talking about. I'm joking. There's not gonna be any junk showing on OnlyFans. But it's sex work, and sex work deserves a conversation. And the reason why I haven't approached it is because the stigma is it's so heavy, right? It's legitimate work that needs to be recognized, regulated, and supported, or you think it needs to go away. If I bring up the idea of a strip club, because there was an almost 10-year battle that cost the city of Milwaukee several federal court cases, and millions of dollars to try and stop a strip club from obtaining a license in particular areas of the city. It's because there's such a heavy stigma on sex work. And some of the people, including women who I would call feminists in the city of Milwaukee, really prominent, connected, politically powerful, financially, economically powerful women, were coming out in full force against the strip club for moral reasons or something. It was really an unusual kind of phenomenon. The ultimate feminism to me is a woman to do whatever she wants, full stop. Be a housewife, be a lawyer, be a doctor, be an attorney, be a stripper, own a strip club. You wouldn't say a man can't. The other thing is, if you've ever been to one, and most people that hate them haven't been. I guarantee it's not what you think. Your imagination probably is running wild if you think, oh my God, a strip club. It's probably not what you think. And maybe you should go just on a fact-finding mission, I suppose, if you've never been to one before, especially wives that are very upset that, I don't know, your husband's going to do what? Marry a stripper or love her more than you? Then maybe it's the issue of the relationship and not the stripper or the strip club. You have to give some kind of respect to someone that cannot, they're vulnerable in ways that we are not in society. If you take all your clothes off, you can't hide. You're exposing yourself in ways that most people never, ever, ever would. You're making yourself vulnerable. It's a fascinating phenomenon. But no, I'm not going to have an OnlyFans. Again, depends on what y'all talking about. I mean, if y'all Investments LLC, the platform is awesome. Where's the IG page? Why you go live on IG as well? Why go live on IG as well? Why not go live? You can go make money with the ads on YouTube. You can make money on IG selling paraphernalia. So Instagram I can't do an hour broadcast on Instagram. I don't think I can, or I can't connect it. Like what I'm using right now is this software where when I click my go live button, it automatically creates this link that allows you to see and comment on Facebook, on Twitter via Periscope, and then also on YouTube. So you guys can actually watch on those different platforms and also comment. And I can see all the comments in one comment box. And I can see like Sarah Laguerre is on YouTube. Justin is watching on Facebook. I don't know if anybody's commenting on Twitter yet. But yeah, it allows me to do that. But Instagram is not a part of that platform. And so soon, once I get approved, it's a really weird approval process, but I'll be able to go live on LinkedIn as well. And LinkedIn is a professional networking website, but I politicize the hell out of LinkedIn. People are on there pretending like Trump wasn't destroying the world. Like, oh, here's some business opportunities, and here I'm having a business webinar. I'm like, Trump sucks. Like they try to be apolitical. I'm like, no, because I post these videos on LinkedIn, but I can't go live yet on LinkedIn. But that's the next one I would like to be able to add. So the thing about making money on YouTube, extremely difficult, really, really hard. So you need a certain number of watch hours, which I got my number of watch hours to go, because there's a process to be able to monetize your YouTube platform. So first it's a number of watch hours, and I got my watch hours in like 3 weeks, but then you need a number of subscribers, 1,000 subscribers. I don't know what it is about getting people to subscribe to my YouTube channel. They just don't, because I can actually see, like, if you're watching the YouTube video but not a subscriber, like that number is huge. People just like go to, they don't subscribe. But also I think you need to be able to comment on YouTube, you need your own YouTube channel, which is easy to make. You just use your Gmail account. But people will not subscribe to YouTube. I mean, a few hundred people did, but I need 1,000. And the other thing is, because I play music in the beginning of my programs, YouTube, because Facebook hates it. You know how people say, oh, I do not own the rights to this music. Screw you, Facebook. You're about to get broken up by the federal government anyway. So because I use other artists' music, YouTube is like, Sherwin, we'll let your video stay on our platform, but we're not going to let you monetize this video when you get to the point of monetization, because you used Bootsy Collins and John Legend and whoever else I may play. But I don't care. I like the music. So that's fine. Marcus Hart, good morning, sir. He says, there's a way, and very professional places, I guess, talking about strip clubs. I think you're talking about strip clubs, Marcus. Some are more professional than others, I suppose. I did it again. I said I was going to talk about Black Lives Matter and how they're now corporatizing, and now they're becoming a political action committee and collecting donations. And some of the on-the-ground activists that wanted to keep Black Lives Matter decentralized and in the hands of the people are very angry because they have not been included in the decision for Black Lives Matter to be a legitimate political action committee that's getting money and getting endorsements and getting celebrities. So I guess I'll talk about that tomorrow, or I'll probably forget to talk about it tomorrow. Dang it, I meant to talk about that. Well, anyways, I think we had a fairly productive conversation. The hour goes by quickly, doesn't it? So here's what I'll do. I'll post the Black Lives Matter article about the internal conflict they're having. I'll post that in the forum Facebook group. I'll do that right now, actually. But subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Forum 2 on YouTube, and just hit subscribe. That helps the channel tremendously. It helps more people see it. It helps me get them views up. And then, of course, I gotta ask you guys to help contribute to the platform via Patreon, patreon.com/theforum2. And if that doesn't work, I guess I'll be on OnlyFans shaking my junk. Sorry, Pastor Lanier. What do you want me to do? You guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow for the Friday edition.